New Thought Media Network proudly presents the Global Heart of Peace's Peace Party. Celebrate the many paths to peace. Explore an exciting life of peace. Embody joyous peace. Come to our weekly Peace Party, Mondays at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. Only on New Thought Media Network. www.ntmedia.org.
Hello. Welcome to the Peace Party. This is brought to you by the Global Heart of Peace Initiative. I am Reverend Chris Plym. I am a special focus minister at Mile High Church, and I am Mile High Church's peace minister. I have worked with the Global Heart of Peace Initiative for over 10 years now. We've been called different things at different times by CSL, but this is where we are today. Today, we are here to celebrate the many aspects of peace and explore how exciting a life full of peace and joy can be. Today, I will be talking about listening as a path to peace. First, I would like to do a short invocation. So I invite you to sit back, relax, find that space in your heart where the words of the invocation and the ideas today can just resonate with you. So knowing there is one God, one Spirit, one life, one all in all, one beingness, that all that are participating, listening to this call today, including myself, are part of that one being, that one life, that one infinite source and power. Knowing this, I know that our thoughts are Spirit's thoughts, that our actions and deeds are Spirit's actions and deeds. That as we draw closer to our own individual understanding of Spirit, we draw closer to exhibiting the values that we feel are expressed through each of us as Spirit. Recognizing that Spirit is blessing all of these words, your gifts today, your presence here, your creation of perhaps a new idea, a new way of listening. I am so grateful, so enchanted and alive with Spirit. These words have been created in that one mind, that one God, that one life. I know it is well, I know it is so, and so it is. You know, in prior peace parties, we've discussed several ideas about peace and connection with peace. We've also discussed loving what is. So what is in this world, not our own individual interpretations of it, although certainly that gives us the flavor and the juiciness of life. But right now, I and many of you might categorize this time as a time of chaos and tumult. And yet I know that the chaos and the tumult we feel today has been experienced throughout generations. And so it is all in a matter of our perception and how we handle it, and how we can live true to our values, and how we can live true to the values of oneness, of beingness, of knowing that interconnection with all. So just a little hint that I find useful for me before we get further into this. I don't listen to all the news anymore. Maybe I want to know the headlines, but I don't have to listen to all the details and get wrapped up into other people's perspectives. I also don't believe everything that I hear on TV or on social media. So that's my hint before we begin. What's our job? What's our job here on earth? Thich Nhat Hanh had a lovely saying in his Peace is Every Step book. When we are able to listen deeply to another person, we understand more about ourselves and the other person. We can find common ground and resolve conflicts more easily. Thank you, Thich Nhat Hanh. So we get to use the great love and respect that Spirit has given to each of us, respect and love for ourselves and for others. Two-way communication builds bridges. It doesn't necessarily change other people's opinions, but by listening, we might find an inner peace that we had not experienced before. Franciscan priest Richard Rohr says, most of us do not see things as they are. We see things as we are. And that's very helpful to remember when we are communicating with another and working the steps of active listening. Here's perhaps some guidelines that I use for face-to-face or even social media interactions. First of all, I listen first. I don't try to come up with my next comment. I listen to what the persons are saying or writing, and I ask questions to clarify their point of view. My thoughts can wait for a moment. They won't go anywhere. And if I have something useful to say, it'll come out at the right time. I also look at the other or regard the other with appealing to the best of the conversation, their best thoughts, their best way of being. They too are expressing their beliefs from their perspective and from their learning in this world. I want to invite a deeper conversation. I don't want to gloss over what they've said, where they are, what they're doing. I also want to remember that their emotions may be on display, and I've got to hold them compassionately. For without compassion, what's the use of having any conversation? I ask myself, what are they saying versus the tone? Because the emotions may be coloring the tone, and the emotions may be the feelings that the person is having in the moment. But what they're saying is generally the truth of what they're trying to convey. So what is the deeper meaning to that? I try to always use nonviolent communication. I try to be empathetic, compassionate, loving, and kind in any response. Something that probably most of you have heard of, or again, that I use, is to acknowledge what the other person is saying or writing or trying to convey in a meme on social media or whatever. If I don't acknowledge what they're saying, whether I agree with it or not, I'm not saying to agree with it, just saying, you can say phrases like, so I hear you saying blah, blah, blah. I also want to make sure that the space for the conversation is safe. And what does this mean for the safety in the conversation, whether it's in person or social media? Well, I remember some key values that I have for communication in all situations. Respect. Never call another person a name. I honor their divinity. I may disagree with them, but with compassion and in words that perhaps they can hear rather than my words. I might be angry about what they say, particularly if it storms against one of my beliefs or one of my values. I can acknowledge that anger and I can take care of it myself. I remember my own personal tools for handling anger, not to take it out on someone else. I also remember their dignity as a human being and that they do have a right to their perspective, whether I consider it right or wrong. But if I'm not listening and not conversing from a respectful and dignified place, they can't possibly hear me either. All of this leads to inner peace, my inner peace. Valerie Kaur said, "There is no stranger. There is no you against me at all. We constitute each other. We are this is my words, Valerie's done here, but we are the very vibration of spirit, the experience of spirit. And so in oneness, whatever we are seeing in the other person, perceiving, it's neither right nor wrong. It just is. We're just being in the isness." Now, where a lot of this comes into play is that when we're dealing with politics and social issues, and yes, you heard me sigh because, yes, yes, those seem to be the topics of conversation sometimes. Anyway, remember that our world is very purple. We say red and blue, and, the politicians try to divvy up states and, statistics and whatever. But, if I remember Dr. Holmes, never does Dr. Holmes ever put any idea or person down. He just doesn't do it. And therefore, he is readable and accessible to all. And that's why I mean that very purple state. Even within ourselves, we can have ideas that are more red, ideas that are more blue, and I'm talking liberal versus conservative. But yeah, when I'm talking to someone, number one, I don't like to talk politics or social issues unless I'm with a group of like-minded people, but that's not always possible. But I speak from my heart. I don't go bouncing around in the ideas of statistics and what this shows and this experiment or whatever. The heart of my experience can transcend the polarities of partisanship. I get the chance to translate my language into something that's not divisive, and I am more likely to be heard when I am doing that. We should never turn a blind eye to something that is bad. But also, we have an opportunity to remember that in some cases, I am the break or the sanctuary from the stuff of the world for people so that they can connect with God. Since I'm an individuation of spirit, no one will have exactly the same beliefs that I do. So remember that social media is not a safe space. In general, social media does not create agreements for sacred space that lends itself to meaningful dialogue. Podcasts, some of them can be wonderful, but you know what the beauty of podcasts is? If you don't like what the person is saying, you can just turn them off. And one-on-one, which is where probably more of our conversations happen, uphold that respect and dignity I talked about earlier, even if you disagree with their position. So in this moment, I've given you lots of ideas, I don't expect you to remember all of them, but if you want to, you can listen to this again. But I would like to end this with a benediction and maybe just a moment of quietness after the benediction, and then I'll close this program. So as I take in a deep breath and relax into that inner peace, which I know is God-given. It is God's inner peace. It is mine. It is yours. That there are many paths to it. An active listening, active respect, active communication on a peaceful level is exactly where God is. We as human beings, I, all of you, can find God, can find spirit in those communications. I know that spirit blesses us, gives us all the tools to operate in perfection and love on this planet Earth. Yay, God. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Blessed be, and so it is. Our inner peace can be achieved by each of us, myself included. And then that inner peace is what's reflected into the world. Thank you for joining us today as we explored a unique aspect of peace and hopefully introduced you to a new way to look at peace. Please join us again next week at 5 p.m. Mountain Time. Our speaker next week will be Reverend Sherry Gennard, and may you dance in the joy of a peace-filled life. And so it is.